what if in 10 years or 20 years, you just don't exist anymore? Like nothing that you do has any meaning. Nobody's asking you for any of your services that you provide, and like your whole existence just vanishes into thin air because you're not able to afford anything. You cannot do anything. What if that happened? Well, it's not a what if, it's going to be a reality for most people, depending on where they are living and depending on also on how the world is going to develop. So looking at that, probably it's the best thing to find out how to prevent that. And today in this episode, we're all about finding out how to not disappear in the future, and actually why specialization is the most important thing that you can do if you don't want to vanish. Hello and welcome to the Artful Maestro podcast. I'm your host, Nenad Leonart, and we are here to talk about all the modern things, digital development happening in classical music. Now, I have been working in this field for over 5 years. I have been in the social media game for over 4 years, accumulating over 70,000 subscribers across different platforms. I have been filming music and putting it on YouTube for myself and for my clients. And all the videos that I made up until today, like the short form content, has gotten well over 10 million plays. All the stuff like the long form on YouTube, we have almost 1.5 million plays to this date, which is going to grow over the years. So I'm very happy about all these successes that myself and my clients can celebrate. Artful Maestro is here to just kind of streamline everything that I know, everything that I do, and to help other classical musicians do the same. Become successful in the social media field, reach people all around the world, and actually so that they are able to share classical music with everyone, so that we kind of have future generations be excited, be amazed of what's going to come. And this is why I do it. And this is probably the reason why you're listening to the podcast. So let's embark on this journey together and find out in today's episode why on earth you want to be specializing, why that is so important, and what steps you can take to ensure you stay on that path. Before we dive into today's episode, let me tell you real quick about our sponsor, which is the Artful Shop. Artful Shop is a place where you get different kinds of music merch, and you can just go there and buy like a mug or like a blanket or like a shirt or like any kind of accessory. That's kind of pretty cool. It's not like these lame music-themed things, but it's more like really put into perspective, like from a musician's standpoint or from a musician style. So just go check it out. And as a little goodie for you, for all the podcast listeners, you get to use the code ARTFUL5 when you're checking out. So with the code ARTFUL5, you get 5% off your whole order. So make sure and go look if there's something that you would like to get. Why on earth am I talking about specialization? Wasn't this like already something that we did? Well, in fact, it's not. It's something that kind of became like a development in the 20th century in many different professions. Now, in music, it didn't necessarily become a thing. Why is that? Well, when we're looking at our education as classical musicians, we kind of go through the university, the art schools, and so on. So we learn about all the styles, and we learn about all the different composers, and we learn about how you are supposed to play this, and how this other thing is supposed to sound, and all these other differences. Then you kind of need to learn to sight read, then you kind of need to learn to accompany choirs, accompany soloists, play in an orchestra, play in an ensemble. So there's so many different skill sets oh, some people start improvising, some people go into composition, some people go into theory, some people go into all different kinds of fields in music, right? That are all kind of connected with each other. And when you're doing the education, you learn about all of them. Now, is it a good thing or a bad thing? I actually think it's a good thing. I actually think that the more we learn, the better we become, and the more like cross-connected thinking we can achieve, which is really, really cool. However, in the real world out there, when you're supposed to be performing, or when you're supposed to like get a job, when you're supposed to do any kind of these things, being able to do all the different kind of stuff doesn't really matter. Like in most cases, your job is going to be very specific, very tailored to one kind of skill set that you want to have. And that's going to be it. So if you understand that if you're going to do a job and that job is going to require mostly one kind of skill set, then it's probably best to train that single skill set and to become really good at it. So you are time efficient when you're doing it. You are an expert in that. So like you really know what's going on. It's kind of expected of you, right? If you want to do that job. And there's a lot of, let's say, different places that you can go with this kind of mindset. Now, most people don't even think about it. What am I going to do later? Most people think, okay, let's finish the studies and let's do all the things that are required of me. Some think like, okay, I am going to just train myself, like, let's say, as a soloist. And I see this a lot. People training to become a soloist and then failing for one or the other reason. Why? Because it's a very limited amount of space. So there's like very singular posts who can actually become soloist. And the competition is enormous. It's like really, really enormous. I don't want to say it's like playing the lottery, but if you are familiar with a little bit of logical thinking, if you're familiar with math, you know that lottery, it's not something that you want to do. Playing the lottery is actually going to hurt you. And playing the lottery is something that only poor people do, not the ones that are rich. Actually, the ones that even get to win the lottery, they lose their money pretty quickly because they don't have like the mindset of a rich person. We'll dive into this in another episode. That's really interesting to understand. However, if you are trying to play the lottery with music, guess what's going to happen? Not much. You're going to lose all the time. Why do I know that? Because the statistics say so. It's probably going to be 99.5% of people who are training to be a soloist just don't have any kind of career. So instead of doing a very improbable thing, that I get it. You think, okay, but I'm going to be different. It's going to be different with me. So let's say you have 100 people in the room and everybody of those thinks, well, it's going to be different with me, right? I'm going to become the soloist and these other 99 are not. But everybody thinks the same. That might be some kind of bias going on there. Okay, looking at that, maybe you don't want to go for the path that everybody's going for already, and maybe you want to do something that we've already talked about this, that's really something that you like doing, that you love doing, and that you are good at. And that's kind of where specialization comes in. Because when you find like this one thing that you like and that you're good at, ideally, you can also find out how you earn money with it, and you can provide it to other people that they actually need. If you can do that, that's going to be very good news for you. Very, very good news, because that is going to be the basis of your career, of what you're going to build. And if you start building this early on, you will be much more proficient when it actually comes to earning money. So let's say already starting that in studies, I talk to a lot of young musicians, and then they all say, well, I want to finish my studies, and then I'll do this other stuff later. But then they come out of university and they have no career, they have no connections, they have no idea where to go. And that's kind of really a bummer. So if you can start with all the career-related stuff, start early. Start while you're studying. Start while you're learning actually to have your life in order when you're out of university and you actually have to be completely self-responsible and earn your living. Nobody's going to support you at that point. So you better start taking it seriously. And if you're already finished and you're like, well, I kind of graduated 10 years ago, it's not been going very well, it's still better to now start specializing into something than to not do it at all. Okay, it's never too late. You just kind of have a little bit of a more stony path in front of you. It's going to be tougher. So it's easier to start earlier, but even if you start later, you can do it. And the reason why you want to do it is because not just is there the huge competition for like the few places where people are aspired to go, but actually when everybody gets like the same education, they come out as same people. So I always do this example with pianists. Every pianist goes through kind of the same school, they do the same repertoire, they do the same styles, and depending on the professor, they even play more or less in the same way. And then they get out, and then you got 200 pianists who do the exact same thing, and you can just like pick one from the litter if you need a specific concert. However, most people, when they're looking to create, to organize concerts, to create like festivals, they are looking for something that's unique. They're looking for something that is kind of standing out from the rest. So obviously, you want to stand out from the rest. And how is everybody else doing that? With the same methods. They sometimes take crazy clothing, or they sometimes take and say the same corny kind of things. We've all seen that. That's been completely used up, like in the late 20th century, like how music careers were made. And there's certain kind of people that still love that, and they love that from the people who have been doing it 20 or 30 years ago. If you come in and you start doing the same thing, it's just not as effective. And you have another 2,000 people who are trying to do the same thing as you. So you better go out and find something that is working for you and is actually unique to you. So you have like your own stamp on it. That is going to make you memorable. And again, I'm beating around the bush here because I've not yet talked about specialization. Specialization is kind of the pinnacle of being unique, because you become an expert in that kind of field. And when you specialize, you can specialize in a way that you are the best person in the world to do exactly that. There's not going to be any other person in the world that's going to be better at this than you are. That is when you specialize correctly. Let me repeat that again. If you choose a certain area to become an expert in, and you strive to be the best in the world, and you become the best in the world, that's like your business card. That's like, here's me. I'm really good at this certain thing. And if you do it in a smart way, that certain thing that you specialized in is going to be something that people want, that people need, that they're ready to give you money for, that you like doing, and that you kind of put in so much effort and energy into doing that if anybody else tries kind of to catch up with you, they have no chance. Once you're an expert in that field, you have so many opportunities, because every time somebody needs an expert in that field, they're going to come ask for you. Every time they kind of want to do like a masterclass on that topic, or if, let's say, they want to do, or like even if yourself, if you wanted to create a course, if you wanted to teach people, you can just do that. It's so easy to do. It's really easy to do. And not just is it easy to do, but you can actually make a huge difference doing that. I know in my case, I always want to learn from the best people, because everything else kind of, I tried and it doesn't really interest me as much, because they're just not as invested. They are not as an expert in that field. So I don't really care. Like, I go there and I just don't enjoy it as much as I would with like a person who really checked that stuff out. And then I can go like, wow, that is really, really impressive. So thank you. And right now, like for next year, I'm looking into courses that I want to specialize in, or just like learn more about. And I'm looking for the best people in that area. And the best is like who knows enough about this and who can provide a really good course. And I've contacted, for example, like a specialist for a very specific time frame for a very specific instrument, because there's nobody else out there, at least that I know of, that is the expert in that area. And if there was a person who was an expert in that area that was better, they would have done a horrible job being an expert, because nobody knows about them. So that's like kind of step 2. Once you specialize, you want to also go and make sure that people know that you've specialized in that. So you want to make sure and create some kind of educational content. You want to say that, like when you're networking with others, like, hey, I'm really into this, or my focus is especially onto this or that, or whatever. Once that you specialize, once that you kind of decide this is going to be me, it's much easier for you to shape your career, because you know what you can say no to. I'm getting tons of requests of people, like, can you do this? Can you do that? And everything that is not Baroque music, in my case, I say no to, with very, very few exceptions. But then the exceptions come out of like my inspiration. Like, I want to do something else just for fun, and then I'll do it. But usually when people are asking me if it's not Baroque music, there's a very easy and clear no. And that is the most important word that you will have to learn to say on your path to success. This is going to be the second part of this episode, where we're actually going into how to be able to specialize. Like, what are the steps that you want to take, and how are you going to stay on track? And the first is, you always want to have no completely ready. Whenever you get a request, bam, there it is. Now, in most cases, it's a no and something. Let's say somebody asks me to perform like a certain type of gig or anything. So if it's a no, then I will directly recommend somebody else who can play it. Now, this does two things. I say no. I don't do that because what I am about is, and then I repeat like my specialization. So people know, oh, he's specialized in that kind of music. Okay. So if I need that, I'll ask him. But that only works if at the second step, I recommend somebody that is an actual good fit and that is going to work with them. Or even better, recommend several somebodies so they get into contact with each other. And then I create like a win-win-win situation, because like even if I said no, I have two other people who I made happy, because it's the organizer that asked me and the person that I referred, because they are also going to be thankful for me referring to them a gig, which I didn't want to play, and now they get to play it, and maybe that's their thing and they're getting the money for it. So do you see how this all comes together? Like when you have a good network and people know what you're specialized in, and you also know what they specialize in, it's much easier to distribute work. And whenever there's like a gig coming up or something, you just throw it at them, and it's great. And it's great. So that is one very important method to learn to say no and to what kind of things you say no. Once that you know where you want to specialize in, everything that's outside of that, you just say no. Like, even if you feel like, should I or should I not? Because the opposite of what's going to happen is, and I know many people, they just play everything. They just kind of take every gig that comes along their way. And I mean, that's great for them. Usually their life is like super chaotic. They're all over the place. They have this kind of repertoire, and the next week it's that other kind, and then it's like 50 different ensembles, and they have no idea where their head is, right? So that is something that is not going to provide you quality of life, and sooner or later, most of them somewhat crash and burn, and then they have to reorient themselves. So you don't want to necessarily be in that position, and that is why you want to say no in all the cases where it's not compatible with your vision of your specialization. The next step in your specialization is to find somebody who is either specialized in that field or in some other field that is kind of similar and that can put you in the right direction. That's also kind of called mentoring. You can also do like a coaching. I'm doing a lot of coaching myself, like not just me coaching clients, but I am actually getting coached by people. And I constantly do seminars and other different kinds of programs to educate myself, next to reading, a lot of books, listening to audiobooks. So education is really important to me. Like at least half a day every week, I just do education, where I get to learn new stuff. And that's pretty cool and also pretty important if you want to stay ahead in the game. So do be educating, but also find somebody who is more down the line, the path that you want to go or a similar path. And then talk to that person and ask them for advice, ask them for any kind of tips that they can give you, knowing what they have been through. And they surely have made mistakes along the way, and then they can tell you, hey, listen, don't do this and this and this and this. And sometimes it's even great just to talk to them and tell them like directly, honestly, what your goals are, how your life looks like, and then they can give you like a non-biased opinion on where you're at. And this is also something, like for example, right now in my life, I want to hire a coach for exactly this specific person. It's a person that I trust. I got to know a short while ago, and I'm just going to ask them like, hey, I trust you because I know what you have been doing. We had a few conversations, and I see how you see the world, and I want to learn to see the world more in that way and learn more how you do things. So would you like to coach me for the period of the next 3 months or 6 months? I'm probably going to go with 6 months at this point, and offer to pay them and then see what happens. And probably I'm expecting them to say yes, and it's going to be very interesting to start working with them, because then I get to have this kind of mirroring. So I tell them what I'm doing, and then they can look back at it and tell me, yeah, well, this is what I think about it, or this is where you could maybe improve, or these are the small parts that you're kind of going a little bit in the wrong direction, and you can just adjust and have your goals better in focus. And I think that's pretty cool. that is also the reason why you want to do that with somebody who's more down the line. You'll never learn as much as from a person like that. And also, like, we kind of have that in music university. We kind of have the teachers that are teaching us there. However, they are not necessarily more down the line of the road that we want to go, because they are university music teachers. And not many people who are studying in university want to become university music teachers. Like, a certain percentage wants to, but another one does not want. They want something else. And that's really important to have, like, this contact, to be able to talk to them and to be able to understand what's going on and how you can adjust to reach your goals. So let's repeat. Learn to say no, understand when to say no, and learn to say no and. So kind of not just being rude, but actually providing even more value when saying no and establishing what you're about. And then you want to find, like, somebody who's more down the road, that's, like, doing this professionally and really good, who's going to help you and to, I also mentioned it already, like, continuously start educating yourself. No matter how old you are, no matter how far you've come, continuously be educating yourself. And there's very few things that are actually mattering a lot in our lives. And these are the few things that we want to keep doing over and over and over again. It's like the same thing with practice. If you want to learn something, if you want to really be able to play that piece, you just have to practice and repeat it over and over again. And the same is with new behaviors. The same is when you want to specialize. The same is with everything else in life going on. You just want to repeat it over and over again, so it kind of becomes second nature to you, and it just goes well. So why you want to specialize is basically, if you don't, like, in 10 or the latest 20 years, you're just going to be lost in the sea of all the people that have kind of done the same, that haven't taken responsibility for their lives, that haven't specialized in anything, but they're kind of good at everything, but, like, not really exceptionally good at anything. And then you're lost in that sea. You will not have a position, with very high likelihood, you will not have a position that you want, but you'll have to take a job that you need. Like, whatever they offer to you, you will have to be taking. And that is just a very different kind of life. So I hope that this episode kind of resonated with you. I hope that you see the reason for kind of looking a little bit outside of that academia kind of hamster wheel, where everybody's doing the same thing and everybody's saying, oh, you just do A, B, C, D, and then life is going to go and gift you everything. Most people, when they finish studies, they go out at life and they see that there's nothing to be gained, there's no gifts at all, and that the reality is actually pretty harsh. So the earlier you start developing yourself in this manner and kind of specializing, you can specialize on one style, you can specialize for a composer, you can specialize for a specific interesting instrument, you can specialize for accompanying or playing in a certain formation. Whatever you want to specialize in, do that and, like, make it your thing. Make it your thing. And I wish you a lot of success with it. And I wish that you can actually fulfill your dreams and kind of create these visions that will lead you down the path to your success. If you do have any questions, if you want to get in touch with me, if you want to leave, like, a comment, that's very much appreciated. However, if you have more questions around these things, you can ask them in the Artful Maestro Inner Circle. That's a specific group that is created for musicians across the world, where classical musicians are developing themselves. They're exactly looking at these kind of topics, and they are sharing with each other, kind of growing together, because it's much easier to do it when you're not alone, when you see other people are putting in the effort and not just going out for a beer in the evening, but maybe they stick around and study some more, or they practice some more, or whatever it is that is needed at the moment, but they just go the extra mile. And remember, like, the most successful people are the ones that are willing to do the things that most people aren't willing to do. So if you want some support, if you want some encouragement, and also see others who are doing the things that most other people aren't willing to do, come and join the Artful Maestro Circle. You can apply. And once your application is approved, you'll get admitted, and then you can enjoy the company of some very unique people in there. Having said that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it. If you haven't subscribed, go like and subscribe. And I wish you a good time and see you in the next episode.